And Parul, if we will join, so what we've decided is that just to give you an overview of Motive, we are an outsourcing company. We do customer support, online fraud prevention, social media listening, back office processing for approvals like loans, where we do diligence on solar investment proposals. So kind of services that we do. And as a structure, Parul and I started the company. I just wanted to tell you our roles. Parul runs our India site, and that includes all functions of the company, including HR, admin, support, about 1,300 employees. And we have another center in the Philippines that are about 400 employees. So what I'm trying to say is that I will start out by talking about how to leverage talent, but only 1% of Motive reports to me. All of them report to Parul. So you see who speaks and who delivers, so that you have a perspective. Now, by the way, I'm very happy to be part of your presentation, sir. Outstanding on how we look at a different approach in running universities. So when we came back to India, and again, as Professor Jain said, from education in the US, UT Austin, where we both went, and then Silicon Valley, where we all worked. So when we came back and we said, we are chip designers at Intel. Parul was on the Pentium 2 microprocessor design team. I was on the Super Spark processor team. And then we said, do we want to start call centers? And the fundamental decision that we made is, we had a software company before that as well, that as long as you are creating value for someone, for your customers, for yourself and for your employees, then it really does not matter what business you do, as long as you do it right. Doing an English language support BPO company. So the answer was that if you really look at Silicon Valley, California, was all orange orchards just 50 to 60 years back. So they grew oranges there. Before, a company called Fairchild Semiconductor started, from which two people left and started Intel Corporation. Hewlett Packard started, and then these companies grew, people started other smaller startups. And today, it is the hub of 30% of the growth of the GDP of the US happens from innovation that happens in Silicon Valley. So what was our understanding and experience after working there? That it really does not matter where you operate your business, as long as you build the right ecosystem. You provide the right infrastructure, training, then people will come from around the world. When Fairchild started, they said, look, people will not come from New York to work in Silicon Valley, and it was not even called Silicon Valley. So the topic that we were given, how to leverage talent, and when we started this, and by the way, when employees, young 22-year-old employees, our average age in the company is 23. So they had offers from large established companies, some were civil engineers, computer engineers getting into this field, and employees have stayed with us for 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years today. We have over 200 employees who are over 10 years in the company. In an industry where attrition is about 40, 60, 80%, our annual attrition of one level above the agent level, which is the first level, is less than 5% annually. So I wanted to start off with the results, that though people say, how do you leverage talent? I want to talk about a different aspect. You have to give before you get. And the idea should not be how do I leverage, how do I control. We built an ecosystem where people wanted to be with us. Because in this day and age, everybody has options. So it is not a gimmick or a game, because I do mentor a few companies and people say, what do I do? Do I do this package and they will stay with us? And I believe what we've implemented at Motive is creating a values-based organization where employees have ownership and therefore they want to stay with the company. So let me start at different aspects of what the organization is. But the very first that happened was before we hired our first employee. So, we have about half of the company, investors have about half of the company. Before we hired our first employee, Parul and I decided to take our employee share and split into half. And we reserved half of that for employee stock options. So the day we created the company, our employees own the same amount of shares as Parul and I do. At 22.5%, Motif has the highest employee ownership of any company across any sector in the country of India or the Philippines, and highest of any BPO company in the world. What is higher than us? Silicon Valley IT startups. And that was our experience at 30%. So before we started the company, we basically parted with, on our own, that's what we want. We wanted to build careers, build lives, and so we parted with that. So we have to ask ourselves, am I trying to get something from this talent, or am I willing to make them as partners in the business? A lot of people didn't understand what stock options were. And they said, look, all this paper, what is the value? And even today people ask, what is the value of this paper? And I say, I don't know, because we are basically trying to build the value in the company. So that is one aspect when you say, look, I'm going to treat you like family, I'm going to treat you like owners, but then all I'm going to give you is a salary. So we have to take that big decision. When I mentor startups, I ask this question. And then people say, look, Kaushal, I'm just starting. I have only one employee or two employees. I am going to put an option plan in place. And the idea is that if you really believe your employees are your partners, then you don't have to wait for a company to be at a certain size. So, some very fundamental decisions that you have to make. What am I trying to build here? And that was our first decision before we started. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about was a values-based organization and how do you build that. So, today, after 1,700 employees, every new employee that joins, Parul or I talk to them for 2 hours on their first day. And that is our commitment, and anywhere in the world. So if they are in the Philippines and 2-3 batches have joined, we do that. So yesterday, Parul addressed 30 people, I addressed about 35 people on their first day, talking to them about what is this value systems and what is the work culture. Our first question is, we ask people, why did you join Motif? And we write it down on the board, every single response, and 70 to 80% of the people say we joined because our friends referred, and they said that Motif has a great work culture and a work environment. In my 15 years, I think probably no more than one or twice somebody has said we like Motif because the salaries are competitive. And you have to do competitive salaries, but this is what I wanted to talk about. That we can say here are the rules of how to leverage talent, but maybe take a step back and say here is what I'm going to build which people want to join. And then they have a pride of association of working with a company. And how do we go about that? So if I can have a pen, I don't have a presentation, by the way we are going to talk for another 10 minutes. It's not working? Okay. If someone's keeping time, ask me. We talk about two aspects. And the two aspects are the core values of the company. And then we say, look, there is no sir, madam culture at Motif, so even the front desk reception will address me as Kaushal. We make sure that people feel that they are all equal. But these core values are something which is a non-negotiable. Everyone has to follow them. And then we say that is called the 3 I's. The first one is integrity, and I will talk about all of them. Integrity, do the right thing at all times. And we have said, if you look at the history, this is not about when you get to growth, then you worry about certain issues. we give smaller examples that let's say you are a team leader and you have 15 people reporting to you, 3 are late by 3 minutes, and no work is affected and they were genuinely late. Raise. But as a team leader in the evening, you have to fill a timesheet to the client, 8 hours per person. Would you put 757 for the 3 or 8 hours and no work is affected? And your appraisal is based on how much revenue and profit your group generates. And people start talking about and saying, you know what, I think 8 hours because no work is affected and they were genuinely late. And then you say, how about 4 minutes for 2 people? And then 2 minutes for 7 people. And then they realize, and we do the math and say this is about 142 hours of billing the client if you take it to 1700 people, where we billed but there was nobody on the seat. And what is it called? And then they realize, what does it mean to do the right thing at all times? Motive's clients, luckily we are, we say we are a small company. Our clients are Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 1000 companies. Our top 4 clients are Nasdaq listed companies. And they do not need a small player like Motive to be their partner. But the way I am going to explain is that because of our work culture, employees stay with us for a longer time. So they become experts in the client's process. And therefore, we are able to give suggestions to the clients to improve the process. Why are people complaining? Maybe this is what we can change. So that's the value addition that you give. And therefore, clients stay with us for a longer time. So 65% of our revenue comes from clients which are with us for 13 or more years, where the contract terms are 1 year to 3 years in the industry. And they can always change, and people change for someone doing a few dollars per hour lower. So the environment that you build translates into the business success of the company as well. Doing the right thing at all times. We have been audited by a big 4 for the last 11 out of the 15 years, when we did not need to spend those kind of dollars to do this. But that's a commitment we've set. That's what we are going to do. Any message in the company has to be shared as is with employees, and you build the trust. The next one is intensity, which is going above and beyond. And now the idea is, does everyone do their job? No. You will have to go above and beyond. Help your colleagues. See, now this is a industry where we have very structured performance appraisal systems. In fact, Parul set it up in a BPO based on the lines of Intel. 90% of it is objective. But even then we say, look, doing your job right is not enough. How do you teach collaboration? And that is by saying, look, you will be also graded on how much you help your colleagues. If they are struggling with a response, how are you going to go above and beyond? And that's the way of doing business. And the last one, which I believe is the most important, is intellect. And we say, challenge the status quo. Discuss, debate, argue, challenge anything, any policy at Motive at all times. And now when we say this, people say, what are we talking about? So, well, you disagree with your team leader. Will you go and talk to his manager? And what if the manager disagrees, right? Your salary is at stake, your job is at stake, you have a responsibility to your family. Will you go and complain to the VP of HR? How high will you go? And then somebody has some, confidence. Maybe we can go as high as we can to the CEO. And that's allowed to. No employee at Motive requires an appointment to see me. And that's anybody can call me on my cell phone 24/7, 15 years running, on vacation, even at 2 in the morning, I pick up my phone on the second ring. Latest. That's the confidence that they build. Hey, so look, and if a manager once in a while misbehaved and said, look, this is what you're going to do, they know they can always go higher. But why did people get promoted? Because they followed the core values. So this really doesn't happen, but that's the confidence you build in the system. So why do people stay? Because they say, hey, look, at least in this company, I'm treated with respect and fairness. Want to change one more? Okay. Oh, I see. There is an extension class. Having the confidence that, hey, this is the organization I want to stay, and it is not very objective. It is a perception, it is a feeling, and it is an experience that they have had, their colleagues have had, following the core values. And then the last thing is, people start with a vision. We talk about the vision which says continuous value creation for all our stakeholders. Now this is really important. How do we make decisions? What is the framework for thought and action? And that is, if you get this right, decision making becomes easier. Continuous value creation for stakeholders. Who are our stakeholders? First is our customers. They pay us money, we do work. That's not value addition. But we are a company where we have made a decision that every quarter when there is a review, we will come up with at least 1 or 2 suggestions on how they can improve their business and save cost. Though our job is to just do customer support. Because you do it for so long, you know, but then you've created an environment where you can argue with each other. Well, we say go argue with customers. Sounds counterintuitive, right? Why would the customer you want to argue with? They are saying, look, you are the people who have understood the pains of my end customers. So when you come up with a suggestion, we are going to listen. And that's what they appreciate. So building the culture, when all we said, sir, madam, you are right, to say now, Kaushal, you are wrong. And now, Mr. Customer, I have a better suggestion. Why don't you change your website where you put an icon here so it is easier for your end customers? Now, who can give that suggestion? But if you always said, you are right, sir, how will our team have the courage? Now when our customers come, they say, look, we get the most influence from motive. Because they say, look, it's okay to argue. Because that's way of life. Empowering people, encouraging them to challenge the status quo. The next stakeholders are our employees. And I say, look, so you should get a salary on the first of the month, right? Isn't that value creation? And most of them say, yes. That's not. You work, you get a salary, that's a given. But what is the value addition? How are you learning? They have a motive university where they learn communication skills, management, dispute management, a lot of different courses, learning and development teams run by a gentleman from Infosys, where you have to grow with the company. Am I a team player? Can I? Because you know what? The entire team has a target of 90%. If I'm 100, the company or the client doesn't win. So it is my incentive to make sure my team member also does well, so my team gets prizes. And lots of incentives and prizes. Lots of events, fun events, by the way, around the year, cricket tournament, chess tournament, Garba, you name it, making a lively environment. But that all comes second, creating the value for the stakeholder. My business to turn it off, not call admin or ignore. So people understand what are the different stakeholders. And the last, again, I'm so glad Professor Jain mentioned this, last is society. If we succeed, we have to have the humility. It is not always our doing. It is our parents, sisters, spouses that made us where we have reached. So if our company has done something, it is the entire ecosystem around, the drivers, the cooks, who have made it happen, so we need to give back. And so for that we do the annual Motive Charity Walk. Again, not when the company says, now we are $1 million, let's do it. When we were 3 years old, in our third year, we did our first walk. So we've done the charity walks now, about 55,000 people have walked. We have raised about 4.5 crores for 35 NGOs in the last 13 years. Blood donation drives, the highest corporate donor in the city of Ahmedabad for the last 3-4 years. And an annual Christmas party with the Ramkirna Tekra slums. All of these activities require you to do something, you to run, walk, donate or dance. And we say, look, this is also part of the vision that we are trying to create. Now you have to make a decision and someone says, look, I think we need to increase salaries by double. Amazing, right? Would employees love it? Why not? So we say, let's now go through this. What will happen to our customers' pricing? Employees will love it, but what will happen to the investors if the company is not profitable? And guess what? We have no money left for anyone. Society will have no place then because we all used it for our benefit. So you set the ground rules on day one. But now when we have the charity walk, we have people who join saying, oh, I work for that company that runs the charity walk. Oh, by the way, we do some BPO work as well. So the pride of association with an organization that they feel is trustworthy, and you to live by that. So this is really what I wanted to talk about, managing talent. There are no small techniques or something. It is really building that ecosystem with the right value systems, core values where people want to be part of. And then there are appraisal systems and all of that. You want to make sure that it's objective. You treat people with respect, fairness. So we can take questions now. Join.
I was just going through my journey of all these 15 years of building the organization. And I remember the first thing that when we started the organization, we had hired about 25 people. That was our first batch. We got our client, they gave some work, these guys were trained for a month. And 2 weeks into production, we hear the .com burst. So the client who was actually ready to give us 300, 400 people worth of work decided to shut down that part of business. And we were left with 25 people who were trained by us, and we had no clue what to do with them. But one thing was that we had invested in them, and we decided to actually not let go of anybody. 6 months, okay, for 6 months, we did not have another client coming in. For 6 months, we actually had these people come to the office and not have any productive work. So how did we manage that? Every single day, we would plan out what activity to do. So some activities would be just one day, some activity would last for like 4 weeks. And we started looking for opportunities to actually create something where the employees would learn something, the organization also would gain something. And we created our own logo, we created our own website, and these are people not trained on PHP or any other programming language. These were people who were plain graduates, BCom, BSc, BA. And we actually learned together. We designed the complete website on it. The first website was actually created by employees. So that's what managing talent is all about. I think students also need to learn, like Dr. Jain was mentioning, how a startup would have challenges where you would have nobody to go to, no mentor, no HR head, nobody to guide you to say that, okay, you do this, you cannot do this, no policy to explain, no policies actually. And we've been through that phase right from day one. So every organization evolves and every employee needs to actually learn along with the organization. So when you join a startup, it's your decision whether you want to join a startup, it's your decision whether you want to join a big company. Both have pros and cons. But my experience is that if you join a startup, if you join a small company, you will always learn much more than you would with a bigger organization. The ownership is much more in a smaller organization. Yes, you need to have that zeal and motivation to fight with the unstructured way of working. Some days will be like you are full of work, you have like 12, 13, 14 hours worth of work. Some days you will find that there is absolutely no work. But you need to be able to remain motivated. Self-motivation is a big thing there. But eventually you evolve, your personality evolves and you become what you are after that kind of experience. Couple of examples, even we go through, even now after 15 years, we go through a lot of variations on whom we want to hire. There's never a first time perfect kind of a thing. And I have 2 examples to share with you. Even after being 14 years old and we'll complete 15 years in August, there was one candidate, a very senior candidate who I came across through a reference. She reached out to me through LinkedIn. And she sent me a resume. I called her because she was here in Ahmedabad working, and her husband is a professor at IIM. So I thought, great pedigree. She had worked with GE in the US, worked with Infosys in India. And I said, what can go wrong? Let me at least talk to her. When I talked to her, she was already at a certain package. And I felt that, our organization does not have a designation or a position which I can offer to compensate what she's earning and what she was earning at that time. So we parted saying, I can't find any position for you in this organization as of now. But let's keep in touch. After a year, she again reached out saying, I've left that organization, I've taken a break for 3 months. Do you think we can work out something? And I immediately talked to Kaushal. He advised that, such a great talent, what are you thinking of? Just get her on board and we'll figure out what to do with her. I was a little apprehensive, thinking an experienced person like that, if I put in a very unstructured environment where I have no clue of what her responsibility is going to be, what will she do? Will she stay with me? And I said, never mind, get her on board. So we got her on board. Slowly we started with MIS because she was into analytics, so I gave her that. Then I gave her the quality department. And then I asked her, I said, are you hungry for more? She said, absolutely. I said, will you be able to manage a 300 people team? She said, yes, absolutely. She took on, guess what, in 1.5 years that she's joined, or not even 1.5 years actually, little less than that, our business in that area has grown 40%. And I dedicate all the success to her because she is what she was. And I took a while to decide on what she can do. But that's the unstructured way of working. Second thing I wanted to point out was the second candidate. At the same time, we had hired for business development. And I felt that, he was qualified, great communication skills. And we thought, that's what we needed. Guess what? He's on his way out because he couldn't deliver. So 2 different examples, both unstructured ways, but one did extremely well, other one didn't. So you have to figure out, do you have the zeal to fight against odds? Do you have the passion to create something out of nothing? And do you want to learn? And pick your choose accordingly. For smaller companies who are in nascent stage, I think Kaushal has already given you background. Dr. Jain gave a lot of pointers on what can be done. 3 things come to my mind. There's no single prescription, like Dr. Jain said. I was nodding my head when he was talking. There's not one single prescription to every solution. You have to find out what works for you, right? Second thing is ownership. If you have ownership, you yourself feel strongly about it, I'm sure that people will follow you and have the same thing. Third is value-based organization. Every single batch we talk about values and force them to unlearn all bad habits that they would have picked up elsewhere and come with a clean slate. So that's about it from my side. Thank you.
Super, yeah. Values. So we had someone, maybe the 2 of us together create a little bit of an echo from that.
We always do. Our meeting rooms are a war zone. And especially if both of us are in the meeting, then people can never believe that we are a team of husband and wife. We fight for our teams.
So a very senior employee, 8 years with the company, and one time we found out that there was a quality score that was manipulated. It took Parul 30 seconds to walk that employee out of the company. And people were initially stunned. Oh, we know this gentleman. I mean, he's a great guy. So when you talk about values, you will live by them as well. And so sometimes, how will you find someone who has so much ownership, so much experience, client knowledge, and you're letting them go? There is no second line in a smaller organization where you have to train and groom. And I think I definitely come to believe that if you have right people on the bus, then every company, beginning from Microsoft, IBM, to a smaller company will have challenges, but the right people will be able to steer it out in terms of adversity, when there are adversity. Anyways, enough talking, guys, all questions.